Hi Gina.
Hi Ione, hi everyone. I'm Gina, the senior editor of Polyester.
And I'm Ione, the founding editor-in-chief of Polyester, and this is the Polyester Podcast, a feminist pop culture podcast dissecting the discourse on a weekly basis.
Before we start, we've just relaunched our membership platform to include loads of new perks, including exclusive podcast-centered ones. We're now offering exclusive video episodes, secret mini episodes, and even episodes centered on what you want us to talk about across different tier options. Go check it out at the link in our description, and if you haven't yet, please make sure to like, rate, subscribe, and review. Do we have any reviews, Ione?
For fuck's sake! You put another fake review in. Cherry Pie 1994. That's your dog.
That wasn't me though.
But it obviously was someone. It was you.
It wasn't. I wouldn't keep my head on straight.
Love this podcast, 5 stars. Been listening for a while and these girls help me keep my head on straight, thank you. By Cherry Pie 1994, which is Gina's Jackawawa.
But there's no 1994 in my house. Do you understand?
I understand.
So
if you
that's
said
not
this
me.
review, let us know.
I think this is a coincidence.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's your dog. Maybe it's your mum.
Your mum. Don't your mum joke me now on the podcast.
I didn't mean it. Anyway, so on to Spotify. This is on last week's episode on Not Everything is a Recession Indicator. Misha MN says, having a laugh with your mates and complaining about celebs is a recession indicator. Kiss, kiss.
Thank you, Misha.
And then Esther says, we're trying to make... What?
I went, Esther.
We're trying to make an absolutely bonkers situation less bonkers, even though... This has been coming for the longest time. We were just told to ignore our fears, to endure for the next ridiculous prime minister or president, and to wait to see how long they take to screw us over. We can't ignore this shit anymore, and we're scared. That's my take anyway.
Exactly. Thank you,
Exactly,
Esther.
Esther, guest host when?
Honestly.
I would love. So, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about the word on everybody's lips. Ovulation.
Yeah.
So the newest Twitter discourse that's been making the rounds is someone did a tweet being like, ovulation texts are so much wilder than normal texts.
Yeah,
And then
everyone's
everyone
being
just
like,
went crazy
oh,
off
if
it.
you're ovulating, you behave in crazy ways, but people are like memeing it out.
Yeah. People are like being like, I'm so horny when I'm ovulating, you can't talk to me when I'm ovulating. Even boys are doing videos being like, I'm not talking to girls while they're ovulating anymore. And it's just reducing women to being hormone machines.
Shall we read some tweets? So, this is a tweet by Hasidic Judaism. I'm sorry to be crass, but those posts about ovulation making women inhumanely horny are literally fascism. That has 9 million views, by the way. And then Bull Dan Dowd got involved with a video of when Timothy Chalamet did that live where he sang I Got a Feeling. And then she said, this is literally how ovulation feels. And then Evo Syke said, we're about 5 years out from the DSM-7. What is DSM-7?
No clue.
Okay. We're about 5 years out from the DSM-7, bringing back Wandering Womb and the Vapors, and some of you are out here cheerfully recycling Evo psychology nonsense about women like to wear pink during ovulation because they're presenting and acting like it's feminism or science. And then Sabrina45X said, your empty women's making you crazy. That's just your biology as a woman. RIP Plato, you'd love that people are still doing this shit millennia later. And then Jackie Hater said, so this is like a quote tweet.
I'm tweaking out.
Quote tweet from the fascism one saying, sorry ladies, your hormonal cycle that's been honed through thousands of years of evolution is in fact fascism. And then Jackie quote tweeted and said, well, the way people are using ovulation as a way to tweet like they're in the Omegaverse is really weird as fuck. And then Zarina said, sometimes I forget so many of you are 20, circle back here in a decade. That's also to the fascism one, which I didn't really understand.
No, I didn't really understand. Are they saying like when your hormones kick in after? Because you have like second puberty, don't know.
No, I think she means that young people are dumb.
Oh, I thought she was...
By calling everything fascism.
Oh, I thought she was being like, yeah, when your actual hormones come in, ladies, then you'll understand what we mean.
And then Barely Balthazar said, ovulation, in quotes, ovulation makes us irrational, PMS makes us irrational, periods make us irrational. So that's 3 to 4 weeks in a month that you're irrational. Do you know what irrational means? And you don't see an issue with pushing that narrative?
Thing is, I am.
I don't think you are. I think you're very rational.
Do you?
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then Kristen, who got deeply involved in the discourse, said, if you bring up ovulation outside the context of trying to get pregnant, I'm immediately ending the conversation. Our paths diverge here. I'm not going through life with you. And then someone else quote tweeted it saying, ovulation always exists outside the context of trying to get pregnant. It's our primary mode of hormone generation and homeostasis during the menstrual years, even if you never become pregnant, conferring your health, longevity, and protection from disease in the menopausal years. And then Kristen quote tweeted again, yes, this is exactly what I mean. Everyone is free to be a body literacy influencer over there, somewhere away from me or au revoir.
Legend.
And then Gabbage Patch 31 said, hot take, but while ovulation jokes can sometimes be funny, it started to reinforce your typical misogynistic stereotype that women are the illogical gender and are too emotional and hormonal by stripping us of responsibility for risky actions taken out of horniness. And it goes on for a while, but were there any other tweets you wanted to read out?
Yeah, someone quoted an Ursula K. Le Guin quote, and I wanted to read that out because I thought it was really interesting. And the quote's from What Women Know, and it goes, it's cool and Bostonian tweeted it and said, don't make me tap the sign. And the quote goes, but I didn't and still don't like making a cult of women's knowledge, preening ourselves on knowing things men don't know, women's deep irrational wisdom, women's instinctive knowledge of nature, and so on. All that, all too often, merely reinforces the masculinist idea of women as primitive and inferior. Women's knowledge is elementary, primitive, always down below at the dark roots, while men get to cultivate and own the flowers and crops that come up into the light. But why should women keep talking baby talk while men get to grow up? Why should women feel blindly while men get to think?
Tell them.
I thought that was beautiful. It really, really hit the nail on the head, didn't it? Like, the way that, like... And it just, the kind of these tweets all reminded me of when we did our spiritualism episode.
Why?
Because so much of that was, like, tied to being, like, a spiritualist girly and, like, being in touch with, like, nature and auras and all the stuff around you. And I think that same stuff can be applied to being, like, I'm so in touch with my hormonal cycle. It really changes how I act, and I'm so aware of that. Again, like, takes you down to, like, this primitive nature of thing of being, like, in touch with the world around you rather than, like, being able to act on free will, I suppose. It's kind of like astrology stuff where people are, like, kind of take it too far to be like, this is happening, which means, like, I have to act this way, rather than being like, this is happening and it's something for me to be aware of, but also I can, like, act outside of that.
I would just put it out there that I've never, like, been aware of anything going on with my cycle, and I'm fine.
I get, like, PMDD a bit.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it is good to be aware of those things, like, and you always get, you say to me, like, when I get my period, you're like, that explains why you've been so upset.
Yeah.
And I think, like, yeah, that kind of stuff where it's, like, maybe it's tied to, like, reproductive health in a way that's, like,
but I'm not being
effective, or, like, if it's good to be aware of these things, but I don't think it means that you are out of control. It doesn't mean that you aren't in control of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think, like, with the not PMDD specifically, but, like, being in a bad mood and stuff around your period, I feel like that's like a 1 + 1 = 2 situation where, like, it's common sense. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I feel like and, like, that's where some of these, I think that's where the heart of these jokes come from, when people are like, oh, I'm like this when I'm ovulating, I'm like that when I'm ovulating, I'm doing this when I'm this in my luteal phase, I'm doing this when I'm blah 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 blah, blah premenstrual, but whatever. But I think it's become, like, conflated because we, like, just have, like, this instinct now to know everything about everything and to be able to explain everything away with science, and the science of our body specifically, because of, like, what you were saying, like, we feel like that's all, like, logical, true things, and that hormones are kind of like this quantifiable resource that we can measure that explains how we are and stuff like this. But it just, like, completely ignores all of the medical bias that exists, of which there's, like, so much about in this research, and we've talked about loads. And it goes back to that quote, because, like, when science was invented, or, like, it was literally founded on the basis that, yeah, men were, like, logical, intellectual beings, and women were, like, primal beasts, basically. And then that gets worse as you go through, like, every intersection of womanhood, like, black women, women of colour, like, it just gets, like, more and more oppressive as you go down that line, basically.
Yeah, because women were, in that act, like, dehumanized. essentially, because loads of stuff like with medicine that doesn't work for women, or especially like women over a certain weight, it was never tested on them because it adds so much to like the scientific process that makes it more difficult to factor in things like that.
But that's so true. But then what I thought, you did like a bit on the research where you were like, I hate scientists, weren't they just like doing normal things instead of just
oh my god, yeah, let me read it out.
like, why aren't they investigating actual women's health problems instead of this?
Yeah, no, let me read it out. Okay. So it's from NBC News in 2010 by a writer called Emily Shawn, who wrote Women's Behaviour Linked to Ovulation. And it's one of those pieces where people get sent a press release like, this research has happened, and then they like just turn it into an article essentially. So they're just like reporting on like this research that's happened, and there's not really like at a study that's come out of university. And it's saying like when a woman's ovulating, her behaviour changes from like the way she dresses, the way that she talks to men, the way that like the things that she wants. And like the tests that they did are so like weird and specific that you can just tell that like it was men being freaks, like male scientists, because it's like fertile women may even be better at getting the men they want. Adding to the findings that men prefer the smell of women who are more fertile, a study published last year in the journal Psychological Science found that testosterone levels were higher in men after they smelled t-shirts worn by ovulating women than after smelling t-shirts worn by women who weren't ovulating. Higher testosterone levels imply a higher likelihood of striking out in romantic pursuit. It's like, yeah, maybe in fucking apes, but like, I'm not going around sniffing everyone's armpits in Primark to find which one's my ideal mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm so much of like why you're attracted to someone or why you want to shag them is not because of their stank.
There's another really funny bit in that article where it goes like, Bryant and colleagues have measured a subtle but detectable shift upwards in the pitch of a woman's voice when she is approaching ovulation. Her voice reaches its highest pitch on the day before and the day of an egg release. Now he's trying to figure out if higher pitched voices is more attractive to men. That was actually not the bit I wanted to read out, but interesting nonetheless.
Higher pitched voices are more attractive to men?
No. This was the bit I wanted to read out. If women are aware of the 5 or 6 days in their cycle when they're most fertile, they may be more likely to become more or less attracted to different types of men, or they might want to rein in their purchases if they happen upon a Victoria's Secret.
Oh, that's the thing, like, these scientists are so sexist when they're doing shit like this.
Your picture might look more attractive near ovulation, so take your Facebook picture mid-cycle.
Fuck off!
Yeah.
Go cure cancer or something. Like, why are you faffing about with this? And I think the thing is like, these studies they come out in articles. Some like person on Reddit or TikTok is like deep dive in ovulation, finds this and is like, will report it as a fact to the world, as if it's something like all women, this is a fact that applies to all women, all men, not just like a small sample group that's probably like 100 people and it's probably like a 0.001% difference in like higher testosterone levels, and also reducing everyone to like how much testosterone you've got, how much estrogen you got is so like weird and transphobic, I think.
Oh, 100%, yeah. It's so like bio-essentialist, and I think that a lot of the people that like are making these jokes on the internet don't realize what they're feeding into. It's like that thing we always say on the podcast is that people treat the internet like as in like it's the group chat. Like, it's one thing to text your friend being like, oh, I'm coming on my period, I feel crazy, and it's another thing to like blast out all this stuff on like an unregulated platform that's literally run by like a fascist billionaire that we know skews to the right, like that we know that also this billionaire in question has a fucking breeding fetish. Like, we know all these things and we just choose to do it because we're like, oh, it's girly. Like, I think it does link back to like the just a girl, like girl maths, girl dinner, like the self-infantilization, and like that's bonding in a way because, yeah, you can like bond with other people by talking about your period, I guess. But like, doesn't it just feel like school? Like, even the armpit sniffing thing, all I could think about was like in school when they used to talk about your pheromones and stuff. It's like, how are we 30 and doing this still? It's
like you find out this stuff in school and then like you'd
forget about it, and then now it's all back because we have the internet and we've got nothing better to do.
Putting their fingers in their minges and wiping it on their neck a few years ago.
No. What?
I remember Eden telling me about it, and it was called like vabbing.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And like, because someone was like, the best way to attract a male is to smell potent of your femininity.
Yeah, we did an episode on that. It was I can't even remember what it's called anymore.
Yeah, it's just like, why are we all so obsessed with like having a carnal attraction to men being carnally attracted to us.
I think, yeah, and it's so complicated because it's like, I feel like it crosses through so many different things. So that, one. B, the like camaraderie thing that I said. C, which we'll get into after the break. I feel like the reason why we feel like we have to know so much, or that we can know so much, is because like these sketchy apps are available. Like, what's it called?
What?
At Ease.
At ease.
At Ease. And yeah, we'll go to a break.
I think as well it's important to note like how much the right are really, really leaning into like fertility and like talking about those things and like championing fertility in women, and like they only really benefit from us like on the left or like on any part of the internet like, hyperfixating on like our biology and ourselves, not just in the way that it's bio-essentialist and harmful to trans people, but also in like a weird Hitler Youth sort of way. So like Trump's now like literally announced this week, Trump is working on offering $5,000 to each woman who has a baby in America, which is crazy because in the article about it, which we pulled from The Guardian, well, Zakia pulled from The Guardian on the 6th, that by Robin Bullett, which says like Trump is trying to pay his way into a US baby boom. They're going to give the 5K away, but the 5K doesn't even like cover the like medical costs of having a child in America, because it costs so much, even with insurance, to have a baby in America, full stop, let alone like have like maternity leave or anything like that. I remember my mum had a friend on one of her forums, on Makeup Alley, that was like, yeah, I'm giving birth and then I'm back in work 3 days later.
Yeah, that's what all Americans do. It's absolutely crazy.
Awful. It's not going to be a good cash incentive then to get $5,000, but it will be a good cash incentive for poor people to continue to do it.
I don't even know if it will be like, maybe if, because the thing is, you spend more than $5,000 just like on having a baby, probably for like the first year, a baby's going to cost you more than $5,000.
I know, but people will be like, oh, I'll just like get my missus to have a baby and then we got $5,000, we're going Disney. But it's literally for the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party did that. They did like medals to like the most like child rearing woman of the fucking year and ceremonies and shit, because they wanted to get the birth rate up to get more of the fucking Aryan race out and about. And look how that turned out.
And I also think I there's a part of this conversation, especially like separate to this but linked, is because obviously like a lot of women are having children later than we traditionally have in history. Like certainly like our mums, like how old was your mum when she had her first kid?
21.
Yeah, my mum was 27. And now we still only have a handful of friends that have kids and we're 31. And so there's this like increased anxiety that like people who want to have children are not going to be able to have children. So it's a form of like trying to regain control to like know when you're ovulating, know all your phases, know how many eggs you have that are viable, like go through these really expensive fertility treatments that don't even have good chances of like results, to go through like egg freezing, which again like doesn't really have a high success rate, and it like all feeds into each other. But in the case of like actual monitoring your cycle for fertility reasons, obviously it's like a spectrum, but at the worst of the spectrum is that you download like a tracking app that's literally probably going to sell your data to the US government that are going to use it to fucking restrict women's rights even more. And on the end, it's like people are bankrupting themselves, remortgaging their houses for all these really expensive treatments that don't even work. Like I was watching The Valley, which is the Vanderpump Rules spin-off where they all have babies and kids and stuff, and Kristen Dute's been trying to get pregnant for ages, but she's probably like 39 or 40 now, so she's like on the later end of the spectrum. And it's like so heartbreaking watching her, because she's been going to this like very expensive fertility doctor who is like basically telling her like the exact days she needs to shag on to like conceive naturally, and she's going to get fucking like pregnancy acupuncture because obviously she's in LA, so that like, and it's so, and then she's like crying so much because she feels she's like, the app's told her she's done everything a day wrong or something, and so she's actually not fertile, she's actually not ovulating, and she's literally like so upset about it. And it's like it feels very manipulative and like swindling, that people, they know people spent all this money for something they want like so much that actually doesn't have like that much of a chance of success. And even if it does, it's like manipulating your behavior and your mind so much through like an app telling you what you're meant to be doing.
And it's also just put in the like onus on the woman for it be her fault and her
Yeah, and her
problem, and like it's so
responsibility.
easy to hyperfixate on anything, especially if you've got a fucking app for it. Like we all know MyFitnessPal like gave a whole generation an eating disorder, and the next thing that's going to happen is we're all going to be devastated because we're not ovulating at the right time.
Yeah,
or like
she's
not
saying,
like
she's literally crying, being like, oh, what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? Like, feeling like she's done something, like made a decision that means that, like, now she's in the position she's in where she's finding it difficult to get pregnant. And it's like, it's just really unfair. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, and it just feels like the such a follow on from all the restrictions on like abortion and like the pill and stuff to then make it even more of like a women's issue. Not, and I use women like that way, but like make it this reproductive issue where the onus is put like only on women, like the importance of childbirth rests solely on your shoulders, and like aren't you so like lucky that you even get the opportunity to do that when there's like kids who have to still have to give follow through on having births and stuff now. Like it's become such like an amped up issue, whereas I feel like even 10 years ago it wasn't that like as divisive.
No, I agree.
And it's because, and it's all like feeds into each other, where it turns like the only thing that like a woman or is for having a kid.
And it is really bio-essentialist, because I remember, like, just at one point when obviously J.K. Rowling's kicking off all the time now, but maybe it was around the Supreme Court decision or something, where there was like a tweet where it's like, oh, it's so crazy that for literally like a century now, women have been trying to campaign for like to not be tied to our biology and to like not just be seen as like biological women. And then like one generation of women is just completely like shitting all over that with all the trans rulings and stuff, saying that you have to be like a biological woman to be considered a woman. And it feeds into his fertility stuff as well, like 100%. It's like we spent all this time being like, we're not defined by our reproductive cycle, we're not defined by this, we're not defined by that, like we should be given positions of power because like, what the fuck do you mean I can't do a job because I'm on my period? And like now we're like, Mom, I'm just a little baby, I just want to stay at home when I got my period, which is fine. Like, you're allowed to say that to your mates and it's funny, but like, let's not campaign for that on like an actual level. And then also saying that we still have all of these things like, yeah, period leave isn't taken seriously. People with endometriosis aren't taken seriously, suffer for ages. The amount of people with like PCOS also can't access treatment. Like, it's a simultaneous thing where women's healthcare is not taken seriously, which probably also feeds into why we're all using like apps and doing this like moving mad. But then it just isn't benefiting anyone, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's so difficult to like be able to talk about like when stuff is like delegitimized into like being jokes and being like, I'm such like a cunt when I'm on my period. It just kind of like means that people can't talk about things like that are necessary, like period leave for some women. And I do think like it just comes back to like that idea of us being like base animals and not like having free will. Like, yeah, I might be in a worse mood because I'm on my period, but I'm still able to do my job to the same capacity because I as a person have the ability to overcome like feeling shitty.
Yeah.
Like, and for the people that like obviously have like endometriosis, I have PCOS, you have PCOS, have conditions that make it harder, then that's like why the period leave needs to exist.
Yeah.
But it just makes it sort of like the nuance of the conversation is lost when we try and like make it so like make ourselves sound so irrational,
and that we're all the same as well, and that like there's a base for this. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, it's such a case
everyone
by case
experiences
basis.
completely differently.
I know so many people who are like, yeah, my period doesn't touch the size, like I'm exactly the same person when I'm on my period. You've said that.
Yeah.
And then there's people who are like, I'm like, I literally need like XYZ. And it's like, part of it is just like having like empathy and understanding for each other. But yeah, again, not maybe putting these conversations into public forums, which will only fuel the men that want to use those conversations to take women's right to vote away. That's like one of the JD Vance's things was like, I don't think women should have the right to vote. I think women should vote in the same as their husbands.
To finish on a lighter note, would you like to tell us about the men on TikTok?
Oh my God, guys. Oh my God, you're not even going to believe the TikToks that I have seen in this video. So Zach's added in like TikToks of like women like doing up, being like trending sounds, being like, I'm going to give him the ride of my life. And it's like me when I'm on my period. And then the men version, oh, so scary and horrible. One guy's doing one, he's just like, I can't talk to a woman who's ovulating because she's not going to be my wife. And then as soon as she stops ovulating, I'm getting ghosted and she's back to being a little girl. And I was like, you absolute pedo scary man. Why are you putting that out trying to like, and men are doing this thing to try and big up being like feminists and be like, yeah, I understand women, I understand that they have needs, I understand that they have like this biological stuff that like helps them, and I buy her a chocky bar whenever she's on her period. It's like, fuck off. It's so pandering and
yeah, it's like pick me but men.
Yeah, it's like the pick me men who are trying to be like, I'm a feminist man. I'm like, oh, honestly, I'd just rather be sexist too.
Just hate crime me.
Just be like, oh, you on your period? But it doesn't really mean anything, does it? Like, crack on. I'll be like, fine. And then the other one, oh my god, it's these two boys having a podcast, not unlike how we are sat right now, dear listener. And then one of them's going, oh, what do you think about period sex? And then the other one's like, being like, I love period sex, like it makes like a strong bond between me and the woman, like I think it's divine, there's a divinity to period sex. And then the other one says, the most vile thing I've ever heard in my whole life, he goes, if I can't get my sword bloody, I'm not a very good knight. Fuck off. Literally fuck off.
It's horrible. I just don't think men should know that much.
Yeah, what happened to the feminine mystique? Yeah. What happened to, like, that's private behind closed doors?
It's just so weird pickup artist behaviour as well, like, across the board.
Yeah, it's the fucking feminist... I've said this before and I'll say it again. Take me to the period shed. Take me back to the period shed. I just want to be around girls during that time. Yeah. I do not need a man trying to have empathy or sympathy for me for something that they, well, like a cis man would never experience. And the thing is, as well... is that ignored in all of this is that men have hormonal cycles too.
Yeah, exactly.
They have
exactly that's the thing.
The same issue. Like they have times of the month where their testosterone is higher when they're sniffing gals' t-shirts apparently, and then fucking times of the month where their testosterone is lower and they're crying little bitches. Like I'm not saying that I believe that those are the case. Like your testosterone levels will change fundamentally who you are as a person, how you are able to act that day, in the same way that I don't believe that estrogen can. But in these conversations where we go on and on and on about the female hormone cycle, nobody brings up the male one.
No, of course not.
And they're doing the exact same shit as we are.
Exactly.
And if anyone's fucking emotional and unable to control their emotions because of how they're feeling, it's blokes.
Tell them.
It's blokes.
And with that...
Have you ever been to a footy match? It's the blokes.
And with that...
thank you, Ione, for a lovely episode.
Thank you, Gina, for a lovely episode, and for Charlotte for sound teching, and Zach for sound teching and research, and Olivia for editing, and everyone for listening. Haha, stole it.
And thank you so much for listening. Thank you to our members for supporting us, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Love you.